right here. Yes.
Rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Really?
I say it fast.
I know,
I say it like John Fox. You're like,
throwing me off, Ollie.
sorry.
She's like the little kids. Just hurry up, get up.
Yeah. I'm always ahead of the announcements, that's you.
You're not a last minute Larry.
No.
You're a rushing,
Yeah, I got stuff to get done.
a rushing Rhonda.
We got too much stuff to get done.
Okay, could we have a motion to approve our regular meeting agenda,
So
right?
we need to have our hearing first.
Yeah.
So we've,
Yeah.
so we've opened the hearing.
Is this the right one?
Shall we just open
Not
it?
the right one?
Truth and taxation.
That one.
All good.
We don't have to say the pledge of allegiance twice, do we?
No, we're good.
Alright, presentation of local
I
property
can read it.
tax.
So this is something that we've been talking about already. None of this is new. Everything's exactly the same as what we talked about in November. I do want to make sure that there is one distinction on here. A lot of times when people talk about local property taxes, you'll hear this 5%, can't go over 5%, can't go over 105%. You may have heard that in your travels, okay? So that's what a truth in taxation hearing is all about. So what is that 105%? So that 105%, that's a threshold compared to last year's extension, okay? What we're doing tonight is the levy. The levy is the ask. This is how much we think that we're gonna get in property taxes. The extension is where the rubber meets the road. That's the dollars that we actually get, okay? So last April, we got an extension that said, we're gonna get exactly, this is how much you're exactly gonna get. You compare last year's actual to next year's levy. And if that's over 105%, that's more than 5% more, then you have to have a truth in taxation here, okay? That's what we're having right now. Now, a truth in taxation hearing, it just means that you have to advertise more, you have to make sure that people have the opportunity to come and participate, that's why Alyssa and Scott are here. And there are certain advertisement mechanisms that you use. Well, since that's just more transparency, that's something that we do every year anyway. We go through all of those same advertising, making sure that people have the right facts, the opportunity for input. We go through all that anyway. I give you this little levy presentation every year anyway, right? And so we do all of those things as if we had a legal need to have a truth in taxation hearing. This year we do have a legal need to have a truth in taxation hearing. Okay, so does this mean that a board can only increase its revenue by 105% from year to year? Nope. The board has the ability to levy more as they see fit, as long as it's within those approved maximums that either the state or the voters have already put in place, with very few exceptions, right? So for instance, for us in the ed fund, our cap is $1.44. That's what was given by the state, and we can't go over that unless the voters were to pass a referendum and increase that, okay? So, how much is the school board levying for this year? And by the way, what's on the screen is exactly what's in front of you on paper. So this year's levy is for $7.3 million. How does that $7.3 million compare to last year's extension? Boom, it's a lot more. Last year was only 6.6 million. That's an increase of almost 11%. So there you go. Since this increase is more than 5%, that's why there's a legal reason to have a truth in taxation here. Okay. So if the board collects 7.3 million, what are we assuming that the tax rate's going to be? Well, we are building all of this on the assumption that the tax rate's going to be the same 270 that was last year. When I say 270, it's actually like 269,835. You round it up to 270. Okay? It's going to be the same tax rate we had last year. Okay? Now think about that. We're going to go up 11% in our revenue tax rate's gonna be the same. You know when that happens? Never. But that means that our EAV, the property wealth, is increasing by 11%. Okay? So a couple reasons for that. Number one is right now natural wealth growth is clipping along at about 5%. And that's really good. Also, we had this huge TIF that runs right through the middle of Mendota. That rolled off, and so the, whatever the number is, I can't remember, 18 million or so in growth that happened from the time that we were last able to access it, which I think was 12 years ago. That 18 million we can now access. And so that's a really good thing. It wasn't awesome last year when we couldn't access it. That was 18 million that we couldn't tax, but this year it's back on our rolls. And so we got this big bump this year. So that's really nice. So we're able to have an 11% revenue growth and keeping our tax rate the same. Last one is, how does this total school tax rate 270 compare to other LaSalle County elementary districts? Okay, in LaSalle County, we have a few very solid comparables, right? We're very much like Ottawa. There's a main elementary that feeds into a main high school. There's a little bit of wonky stuff there, but for the most part. LaSalle Peru, there's Peru Elementary, there's LaSalle Elementary, they both feed into LP High School, right? And so if you look at us and those two, all three of those communities kind of function the same way, right? So those are really solid comparables as to what's going on. So our elementary rate of 270, what does that look like in comparison to our LaSalle County comparables, okay? So Ottawa Elementary, and this is based off of last year's 2021 tax data. Last year, Ottawa Elementary 283, LaSalle and Peru both in the 3.25 range, and we're 270, right? So we are being, I would say that we're being very conscientious to our taxpayers. I think that those are all positives, but I think this is really good data moving forward.
What is the tax rate of the high school, do you know?
Yeah, it's about 220. And so if you look at, and I don't remember these numbers right off the top of my head. One of those between Ottawa and LaSalle, Peru, one of them is fairly close to that, and the other one's a little bit more.
For their high schools.
For their high school, yep.
And just for clarity's sake, can you explain how any of our, also our, this isn't the total amount collected because we also have the debt, the district is collecting on taxes as well?
You bet. So of the $7.3 million, just over $1 million of that is debt. That is money that was borrowed in years past, and the school has debt just like you and I have debt at home, at our house, right? And so you go out and buy a car and you borrow money and then you pay it back over the next 5 years, and then your car is yours free and clear, right? So exact same thing. We have in our past had borrowed money. When schools borrow money, that's called selling bonds, okay? And so we've sold bonds, and so we have outstanding debt. I believe our outstanding debt, off the top of my head, is set to be completely paid for in 26.
And we have some flexibility with that potential funding option.
We certainly do. And so not only do we have flexibility with that, and I have every intention of having, what's the guy with the great haircut? Kevin Wills, from Bernardi Securities. He will also.
He doesn't have any hair.
Did you guys catch that
Doesn't have
joke?
any hair.
Because I knew that joke as soon as I heard
And I
it.
I have every intention of having him here at the January board meeting to talk about that, right?
Okay.
Because those two things go hand in hand, and so right now, because our EAV is going up, we can actually keep our tax rate the same and pay more on our debt, right? So there's all kinds of really great things with our EAV going So we're in a really good spot. Increase in revenue. We're still able to charter a course that's gonna continue to leave a lot of money in the bank, still keep our tax rate very competitive, so.
And I think it's important for us as homeowners also to know that when we say the tax rate doesn't go up, but the EAV goes up, it's kind of like, even though the tax rate's not different, if your property is valued at more, it doesn't mean that your tax bill isn't going to go up, right?
That's exactly right. So the amount of money that we receive as a district is the same, exact same easy little computation as how we pay as homeowners, as we pay property taxes. It's the value of the property times the rate, and that's how much you pay, or how much we collect, depending on which side of the mirror you're looking at, right? And so if on my property, I made some improvements and the assessor goes by and says, oh, your property's worth 10% more, well, a flat tax rate still means that your tax bill's gonna go up by 10%, right? So all we can control is that tax rate side of the equation. If your property value went up 10%, then what I say to you is, that's awesome. Right? I would love to. That's a good thing. Great questions. Anybody else? Scott or Alyssa, did you have anything?
I love the comparisons though, if you really want feedback.
I do. I love feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for the presentation. We have no public comments, so could we have a motion to adjourn the truth and taxation hearing?
I move to adjourn the truth and taxation.
Second? And roll call.
Cost? Kane?
Yes.
Komitas?
Yes.
Manders?
Yes.
Rapp? Beats?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
All right, now moving on to our regular meeting agenda. All right, so now could we have approval of our regular meeting agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent, right,
No,
the
the
regular
regular,
agenda.
yeah.
Regular agenda as presented.
In a second,
Second.
and roll call.
Landers?
Yes.
Rapp? Yes. Beats?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Kane?
Yep.
Komitas?
Yes.
Manders?
Yes.
Unless our large audience has anything to say, we'll move right along past our reception of visitors. And now into our consent agenda, so if we could please have a motion to approve those items.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including 5.1 disposition of minutes for November 2022, 5.2 payment of bills, 5.3 district's treasurer's report, 5.4 in-person activity fund report, cafeteria report, and 5.5 personnel report.
And a second,
Second.
and roll call.
Komitas?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Rapp? Yes. Beats?
Yep.
Schrader? Yes. Kane?
Yep.
Moving on, do we have any FOIAs?
We actually have a FOIA that we're working through right now, but we haven't had a chance to complete it. Let you know.
Is it a commercial request or an individual request?
It's, yeah, I think it is a commercial. I think it's from like a media group. It's FOIAing all of your names, a lot of personal information actually. And so a lot of our response is gonna be, we don't have that information, so. But yeah, I think it's a statewide thing.
All right, moving into your superintendent report.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things to update. Super excited in the fact that we're gonna have our teacher institute, on the 3rd to button some things up, and then it looks like, the 3rd week in January, and we're gonna do our 7th and 8th grade Chromebook deployment. So we, that's been something that's been a goal of ours, and we're almost there. And then, what a great week. We had a fun little staff meeting today at the Northbrook Gym at 2:00 and handed out some prizes and had some Christmas music, and everybody kind of chatted. And so, just quite honestly very blessed to be a part of this staff and community, and the way they work together and doing great things. Just good to be happy.
Any other questions for Brad on that? Okay. We had no committees to report on, so we are going to move right along. The adoption of the local property tax levy. Are there any other questions before we proceed? Assuming not, we've talked about it quite a bit. Okay, if we could have a motion, please.
Make a motion to adopt the local property tax levy for a total of $7,380,728.
In a second.
I second.
Okay, roll call.
Landers,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Beats,
Yes.
Schrader. Yes. Kane.
Yep.
Komitas.
Yes. Okay, harbor contract revision. This, just to clarify, was only for the remainder of this school year?
Accurate.
Okay. Did everyone read that in the update? Any questions about that?
Nope.
And then that contract is set to sunset at the end of this.
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, so this is the increase of 20 cents, and this is due to the rising cost, and not any really majorly direct impact to the district. It's not costing us more money, it's just less money that we're bringing in, but being fair to the rising expense of.
Agreed, and even though our choice is to not continue with Arbor, nothing, any fault of their own, kudos to them, they really did a really good job making sure that we could feed our kids during some food shortages, and so we're very thankful to them. This is more just about us being able to do some things better on our own, and so we don't want to see them go bankrupt, especially if we're getting more money from the feds anyway. It's just kind of funneling it to them, so.
No one can deny that things cost more.
No.
Okay, if there's no other questions, could we have a motion, please?
I'm making a motion to approve the Arbor contract revision with a 20 cent per lunch increase.
Second? Second. And roll call.
That have to be effective immediately.
Um,
Effective immediately.
No, because actually,
Okay.
the way the ISB does it, they'll retro it to December 1st.
Okay,
Per month.
Yep, it's on a per month basis.
sorry.
No, it's all good.
Rapp,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Komitas,
Yes.
Kane.
Yep.
Schrader.
Yes.
Beats.
Yes. Hang on 1 sec. 7.C, sounds so weird, is the portion of the roof that is a no matter what, irregardless of solar, correct?
Correct.
So item 7.C is the summer security projects that we went through last time and kind of talked about the A's, right? This is the A's and then the roof.
Yep. Also, I think important to note that with respect to some of the security and some of the, in particular, some of the doors, one of the more costly parts to door replacement is in a lot of our older doors, we have to actually replace the whole entire frame. It's not just the slab that has to be replaced. One of the things that we really enjoy about partnering with GRP Wakeman is if there are opportunities that we can do things differently and look at ways to change the scope of things to be as effective but yet more cost effective, then they bring those to the table. And so, Alyssa, can you talk a little bit about the fire rating of some of the door frames and how that might be a potential savings off of the numbers that are presented?
Yeah, and I guess I could pass out our packets right
Sure.
now if that sounds great to everybody, and I'll speak to it. So, as your doors stand right now, they're not listed as fire rated, and right now I'm talking about your corridor doors, so anything to teachers, classrooms, offices, things like that. And as we update these per code, they have to be fire rated, and right now, without a way to confirm that, we've included replacing the frames, doors, and hardware. But we can contact a third party to come and inspect frames to see if they are fire rated. And essentially what would happen is, after reviewing all the door frames, any frames that are up to the standard of a fire rated door would get labeled as a fire rated door, and we wouldn't have to replace it. So at that point, we would only be replacing the frame or the door itself with the hardware. And that's obviously advantageous, because as Brad mentioned, it's cost effective, and essentially if it's already fire rated, there's no need to replace it. And the only exception really we're looking at is Lincoln. Lincoln's got wooden frames, so I could tell you right now they're not gonna pass. But for Blackstone and Northbrook, there's definitely the opportunity. So that's what we're hoping to do is contact them. The only thing is that there's a fee associated with the work for them to come out and inspect all the doors. So I was quoted around $3,000 for the cost for somebody to come out and inspect it, which you'll spend the $3,000, and there is a chance that none of the doors are fire rated, which means you spent money to not save any money, which is always obviously a risk. But with that being said, knowing that there are the steel frames at Northbrook and Blackstone, I think there is a good possibility that there's some cost savings associated with this. So yeah, that's kind of.
What does, like, on average, what does one cost?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
So all in, you'd save around $30,000 to $33,000 in framework.
If all of them were.
Yeah, if all of them work. So
even if 10% are, we covered the cost
Right,
of
yeah,
in one
right.
way or another.
and they're pretty consistent to what Alyssa said. Like, we wouldn't bring them out here if we didn't think there was a chance. Like, we've dealt with this before where, believe it or not, it's usually a tag that's on there that gets ripped off the first time they ever got painted because
Yeah.
nobody thinks they're important, but without that tag, we can't prove it, so these companies come out and prove it, and then you throw the tag back on, and hopefully next time they get painted, they don't get ripped off, so.
Keep that in mind.
So really the approval of, I have the number in front of me, it's like 1.7.
Mm-hmm.
1.175, yep. So really that motion needs to be for a maximum of that, because this person comes in and those frames get fire rated, then our cost will go down.
On the card readers, is there a significant cost for us to have, like, the software and the ability to print the badges, like, that goes behind that, or is that, like, does that include the cost of us issuing fobs and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that cost right now includes 100 cards or fobs.
Okay.
So I don't know the cost per card off the top of my head, but that, you know, at least 100 cards are included for.
Then, then as we hire and let people go, like, do we control the ability to turn new cards on and off somehow then?
Yeah, so essentially, we would make sure that you guys have the ability to manage the system once we set everything up. So, so that, like you said, as you have new hires or people leave the district, you guys are in control.
We'll
Missing
still have
keypads.
keys for interior, right, yeah. Alright, I was just looking at this, cause this is a more detailed list than what we had looked at before. And this, remember we went back and forth a little bit on what the office here at Northbrook was gonna look like?
Yes.
Is this making just the minimal changes, or is it, what is this?
So in this is secured entrance only, okay? So none of this, when we talk about some of the functionality pieces that are lacking in Northbrook with respect to office and conference room and, you know, where the nurse's office is located, you know, that kind of thing, none of that is a part of this conversation, okay? So this conversation at Northbrook is all about when you come in, the first set of doors, they'll be unlocked. That in that little foyer, there'll be, you know, kind of table and chairs if people are just dropping off lunches or whatever, they don't actually have to be buzzed in. The second set of doors, then we'll have camera and buzzer. Then you'll have the ability to go into the office, and if for some reason you need to, then the office can buzz you through a third set of doors.
So is it literally like the existing
Yeah, a little bit west of that, so,
Like,
so
I
kind of.
thought it was like
in
before it
between-
hit that ramp thing, isn't that
Yep,
what you said
yep,
last
so,
time?
so it'll be in between the doors to the main office and the door to Paula's office, it'll be kind of like halfway in between.
Okay, yeah, like right in the middle where there used to be that,
Because if you don't put that
display
third
case.
set of doors there, once you get buzzed in, you just go,
Right. There's,
and that can't happen.
right where there's that display case, where there
Yeah.
used to be.
It's true.
I didn't know that.
It's real pretty.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And this, there's not cameras, but there is the cameras associated with the earphone thing, right?
Correct.
Yep, that part of it, okay. Okay. Well,
We won't paint over this part.
catching up to the.
Yes, and quite honestly,
Right, we're indoors at the lock.
Remember last year, I did say that.
I know.
With the door stops, and I'm like, that's so weird.
The door stops and the needle, it's funny,
Sorry.
because we have to.
Yeah, sorry. It didn't work when I was here.
and quite honestly, a lot of man hours, a lot of due diligence, to make sure that this, is the right project, so. Really happy with the direction.
And just the facelift that like front, like reading through what you have on here for Northbrook about like replacing the light fixtures and painting and like everything is just gonna have like a new first impression to it, right?
Yeah.
Alyssa gets it.
I tried, guys.
Thanks. And then at Lincoln, remind me again, this one was weird, it just meant moving the secretary's desk around.
Yeah, so if you guys, I don't know the last time you guys were at Lincoln, but when you walk in that front door, there's that cabinet basically that I think the teachers will sometimes use at the beginning of the year. But basically that's gotta get moved out of the way because that's within that 7 foot of the vestibule. So what I have in the scope is for it to be removed and salvaged so that you guys could try to reuse it. But then at that point, it would basically just open the space. So your desk would stay in the same spot essentially. It's just sort of configuring that casework, I suppose, that you'd kind of run into. So at that point, it's, you'd basically walk into a door on your left, and then there'd be essentially like a window wall partition on your right. So whoever's at the desk can see you as soon as you walk in, and vice versa.
And so the new door is an exterior door.
The new door is an interior door. So yeah, once you enter the building, it's gonna be, like I said, that kind of 7 foot mark is that new vestibule. And it's basically where that desk starts, we'll start the wall,
Okay.
right in front of it essentially.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question?
And again, much like Northbrook and like Blackstone, the model will be set up so the vestibules, the far exterior door is gonna be unlocked. So a lot of times, parents are just coming to come in and wait for their kid, or pick up their kid, or drop off a lunch, or whatever. And in those vast majority of the time, they won't even have to be buzzed in. They'll just hit the phone, yep, I'm here to pick up my son. He needs to
So
go
like
over
the
that,
sign up
right?
sheet, the sign up sheet might be
Yep.
like out there.
Yep.
Well, and you know what, you can also, that's where they can also wait when they're waiting to get picked
Yep.
up for, cause that's what the old is.
Yep, couple chairs out there, yep, exactly right, so.
You can go through the last one found. Browse through the last one found. Okay. All right, so are there any other questions? I see it says 2023, what is this completion calendar starting?
A majority of this work's gonna happen in the summer.
Mhm.
Obviously, if there's opportunities for us to work on second shift, maybe in the spring, we'll work with you guys to see if that's feasible, but, in my mind, everything's done by August 23, right now, pending nothing crazy with lead times, cause
Right.
that's the other thing, I always wanna add the asterisk with the world right now, because we get told one thing and then we find out later things change, so.
Yeah, and quite honestly, that's a big reason why it's before Christmas, and, we're really trying to make this the determination is because literally the lead time on doors is
then how soon would you anticipate the, third-party company coming in to look at those, door frames and doors and stuff?
I would contact them and just see what their availability looks like. I'm definitely anticipating it being after the new year, just with the holidays and things like that, but, my hope would be sometime in January, maybe February at the latest, so I'll definitely, probably after today, reach out to them, since it seems like, well, once I know what your guys'
Yeah,
opinion
right,
is, I'll reach
right.
out to them and we'll figure that out.
Thanks.
Yep.
So let's play out worst case scenario then, like that they don't find any, and we've capped this, is there enough wiggle room within this dollar amount to cover that expense? We don't think
I don't think the $3,000 is included in this.
It's not right now, I just wasn't sure.
They'll just send me a separate bill for $3,000.
Okay, so if it's under the threshold, it'll be okay.
Yep.
Okay. But since you guys are so good at trimming things, I'm sure it will.
Pressure's on, right? Put 11 miles on it.
Right. Okay, any other questions? If not, we can go ahead and call for the motion on item 7.C.
I'll make a motion to approve summer 2023 project security in Northbrook fifth grade roof as presented with GRP Wegman not to exceed $1,175,050.
Do we have a second?
A second?
And roll call.
Kane,
Yes.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies, as well, for the great work there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 7.D. We have additional in here that we wanna cover. Do you guys have anything else to share on solar discussion?
Anything
New in here? or
new?
anything?
Yeah, just, I guess a quick thing, sorry, on the solar. Two things kind of came out of that. One has to do with the roof and one has to do with the solar. Is the solar, price actually went up by $2,000 as far as the contract price, but your out-of-pocket price went down, I forget what the math is, but that actually went down because we have honed in 100% what the SRAC cost would be, and that was around a $60,000 swing. So actually, it's going down by around $60,000.
It went from
out-of-pocket.
285, it went from 285 to 218.
Yep, so that had to do with honing in 100% on what the SRECs would be. And then we were also able to move the solar around a little bit to reduce one of the roofs that you were looking at doing, which would be the gym section here at Northbrook
And that's section 8 on the,
on the drawing.
yeah.
And that, you said still had about 5 years, we thought, or so?
I would say that it's almost 20 years old, and it's not, but it's in good shape. It's not leaking. We haven't had any issues with it, so.
Knock on that wood.
Yeah. Until the gym comes.
Right.
Might have leaked today.
Yeah, if it didn't leak today, you know, it's in pretty good shape.
So will you just recap for those of us that are kind of smelly about this project? Or is it on one of these sheets, kind of like, I know we put the big amount forward in our motion, which is a terrifyingly large number. Some of it we would get back in lump sum, and some of it pays back over time, right?
Correct.
Okay. So
So
that,
if you go to the third page in there, which is the solar summary.
okay. Just wanna review it one more
Yeah,
time.
no problem. We actually made the table bigger as we've been going from last time, so there's even more information on here, so I'll just, if you guys are comfortable with it, I'll hit the total section
Yeah,
again.
Just so you guys know, it's the third page after this options chart, it's not the third page, in case
Oh,
there's
total.
any confusion.
My
That's-
staple fell apart,
Yeah.
so I was hoping that was right, sorry. Thanks.
No problem.
The one that's got the GRP wagon logo in it. There we go. Brad's got it, hopefully everybody else does.
Got it.
There we go. So with the total, if you look at, as we're getting down to the incentives, I'm about halfway down where it says district purchase price, $2,108,447. So that's what your contract price would be for the solar to be installed. The SREC program, 20-year term, including SREC fee, that's the one that went up that I was mentioning. That's paid out over a 7-year period to the district. But the SRECs are sold over a 20-year period. So it actually at year 20, you even get more money back once you've proven that you actually did all of your SRECs. It's kind of a weird thing. It's their insurance policy, and then you get a kicker at the very end. So it's kind of unique how they do that. The smart inverter rebate is directly from ComEd. That comes as soon as this thing fires up. I say as soon, paperwork gets filed with them, then they send it within 30 to 60 days. You'll get that, 177. And then the investment tax credit, the understanding of that is once it's all up there, actually you apply for that and you'd get that within 0 to 90 days, because that one's coming from the federal government.
Is there anything on that one that gets filed, like, or is there any likelihood, and that's the biggest number, like, we pass this, we order it, we're going down the line and the program's over. Like, is there any assurance once you order to, like, get on the list or file anything?
To get on the list, yes, and the other thing is the money is allocated towards that and going towards these programs. So, but again, I will say this, it's the state. I mean, the first one's the state, the SREC program fee, and the smart inverter rebates ComEd, so that one's coming. And there's allocated money for that. And then the smart investment tax credit, again, there's allotted money for that. That should come, but it's out of our control.
And
because it
that's
is the
state or federal, that
That's
one?
federal.
That's federal.
Yeah, that's the one that changed really everything. I mean, you can see what a big number it is.
Mhm.
It changed the whole aspect of how people, school districts, should be looking at these, because that didn't used to exist for you guys. And these are all inline numbers. There is some potential for some variations in this as far as it going up, but I'm not presenting those numbers because, to your point, that's the thing that hasn't fully been clarified anyways. If we can get it, we will, but this is what everything has been cut and more dry as far as how that works.
So there is something from the time that we press go on the project, we kind of indicate to these programs, we don't have to wait till everything's turned on. and-
Right, no, we indicate we get locked in,
Okay.
and I want that lock-in before we would place the big order,
Okay.
is what it
Good.
really does come down to. If something were to
That's
come up,
good.
even though you approve the 2.1 today, we are going to get all the motions, but if something strange happens, especially when you're talking about 632,000, worst case scenario, because I think that's what you mentioned, I could come to you and say, look, I don't, program's gone, we should cancel this whole thing, and then we look at that, and
Okay.
that's just the way it would go, but this is the only way to keep progressing down the path.
Sure.
I don't anticipate that. I mean, last time I did these, everything comes, it's just working through it.
Yeah, and the nice part about it is it's not like you're waiting on money to be allocated. In these grant programs, the money has already, you already had the votes, the money's already been allocated, it's sitting over there. And so it's just a matter of having of qualifying for the program and having it flow.
Yeah. Which is a key thing, because, I mean, in the 16 years I've been doing this, I can't tell you how many times I get a call from a superintendent, what about this grant? Yeah, no, it sounds great, but it hasn't been funded, you know, and it never gets funded. This is, to Brad's point, allotted money that is going towards these programs. Yeah.
You know, in full disclosure, I tried to be as, I'm gonna say candid in my last report as possible. You know, I don't have great experiences with alternative energy. And that's why I think our site visit to Troy was so kind of reassuring. It's a very similar project. It's got a very similar feel. Ours would actually be smaller. And to be able to spend, you know, a good part of the day with their facilities person and have them, you know, say, yeah, we have somebody come and do the maintenance on it. But outside of that, we haven't spent any additional money on it. I really don't even think about it. It just works. And so, even though I'm not a huge fan of locked-in maintenance contract, the fact that GRP Wegman recognizes that as they continue to get more into this business, it's something, it's a service that they're gonna have to provide in order to make sure that everybody is hitting their markers when it comes to all of their energy savings. And so, you know, if they can do it in a financially, you know, reasonable manner, which they can, and they can take care of that annual maintenance part, then, you know, I can sit here with a clear conscience and say, I'm okay with this.
And the break-even point is at 6.3 years estimated, and then it's positive after that,
Yeah,
the income source after that.
and that was a new sheet we had added. You go a couple sheets in, cause it's broken down by each one. And then there should be the total. I think it got labeled wrong, my apologies. It's, oh, never mind, I flipped too far, cause it says Blackstone, Northbrook, Lincoln combined, it's the
Okay,
very
the
next
first
one.
Okay.
You can see, to your question about the payback too, as far as how the SRECs come, the inverter rebate, the federal investment tax credit, and then the SREC fees, and then how I was mentioning, that comes back to you at that year 20. But you can see the cumulative cash flow and how that would work over a 30-year period. The district would be net positive $1.2 million towards it. And this is taking into account that one-to-one trade-off that we've talked about your current, and at about a 3% escalation. And I personally think 3% escalation is very conservative. I mean, even if we took it to 0, I think it only adds like 1 or 2 years, but down in Ameren right now, everybody's freaking out because they're seeing around 100% increase in their utility rates. So I don't, you know, there's all kinds of talk about this. It's just a matter of time until you start noticing on people's homes. But ComEd hasn't gotten there, but that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And not that I don't trust Scott's math, it's just that I do all of our math independently. And so what I get on my calculations for payback is 6.6 years, so about the same numbers.
And the manufacturer indicates the life of it at full capacity of 30 years or 20?
No, there's a degradation in there.
Okay,
Which
so that's
is,
built into here?
Yep, that's
Okay.
built into it, yep. That's why, we go back one page where it talks about your, first year power savings, or I'm sorry, the first year one production of 935,900 kilowatt hours. If you multiply that times 20, you'll become with a bigger number than, 2 notches downwards to 17,855. That's taken into the 0.5% degradation year over year.
Okay, up to 30 years,
Yeah.
okay. Anybody else have questions?
Going back to that maintenance, possible maintenance contract or whatever, I don't remember if you put an amount, or do we have an idea of what that would look like for us then? If we went with something like that, or?
Well, I was told by Mr. Engstrom that it would be between 5,000 and 7,000 a year.
Okay.
So he would know not to come with a number that's outside of that range.
$6,999.
That works perfect, cause
Yeah.
I put 7,000 in our calculation.
Okay.
That's in this calculation?
That's in my calculation. When I said I got to the 6.6
Okay.
years as the payback,
You
included
had
it.
that included?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't put that in our columns because, I mean, honestly, you guys might decide after year 1 or 2, every time we're here, somebody from the district goes up and walks with us and says, I can do this, and if we need to call them back, we'll call them back, and we would just continue whenever you call us back to do it.
Yeah, Howard, we could do it.
That won't be the superintendent for the.
No, Holly volunteered.
Oh.
Holly,
I know.
we're all good.
How's understanding the balance?
I know it's not the comparison, but I was talking to a family farmer who has their total solar. I mean, there's 2 houses, machine sheds, the whole thing is total solar now. And did it in 2 increments. And I asked her about maintenance, and she says, what maintenance? I mean, you know, they sell back to ComEd on theirs, they produce enough the rest of the year, they're selling back. She says we've had hailstorms on them, they're perfectly fine.
the snow just slides right off because they're dark colored, they heat up, and she says, we haven't had any trouble in 5 years, and we're running a working farm on total solar.
Great, thank you.
It's a big decision, so I don't wanna like rush it. We wanna make sure everyone got the chance to ask all the questions, to voice concern. Ellie, we're just pausing for a second, since it's kind of a big decision, just to make sure everyone had the chance to ask questions, express concerns, share anything. Okay. We'll make sure we aren't rushing this one. Okay, if we have no additional questions, if someone would like to call the motion, please.
Okay.
Brenda.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the summer 2023 project solar panels and additional roofs as presented by GRP Wegman not to exceed $3.33 million.
And a
I
second.
had choked on that.
Right? And a second? No seconds?
I'll second it.
Okay, Kristen seconds. And roll call.
Schrader,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Beats.
Yes.
It passed!
Exciting.
Yeah, I think it's
Very innovative.
very ahead and forward
Yeah.
thinking. I'm proud of us.
Well said.
I've been kind of talking and listening, mostly listening, but in the community, and I don't know if it's just the old hippies I hang out with, but
Never thought of you as an old
No, me either.
very positive feedback on the idea of going solar. I mean, they like that idea
Mm-hmm.
very much.
I mean, we only had 2 parents write back as well, right? And that was both positive.
They're both in favor of it.
Yeah. We haven't heard anyone really speak out against it, so. Well, there's been plenty of time. I feel like we definitely didn't rush this.
No.
Okay, well, very good. Could we actually, call a motion to table 7.E to the very, like, so not table it, but can we move it to underneath item 8.A? So my motion is to move item 7.E to become 8.B. We could have a second
I'll second.
and roll call.
Kane,
Yep.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Beats.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Item 8.A, first read
Thank
on
you, guys.
I know
Thank
that
you
you all
so
have to get
much.
on the road.
Good night,
Yes.
guys.
Thank you
very
so much.
Everybody have a
Drive
great
safe.
holiday season.
Drive
Drive
safe.
careful.
See you in the new year.
Yes.
And we'll clean up since everything was so organized when we got here.
Thank you for being here, we
Drive
appreciate
safely.
it.
Thank you.
Grab some
See you
snacks
later.
or a bottle of water or something.
Yeah.
too.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm good. Thank you so
sure?
much.
All
Yeah.
right,
See
bye
ya.
guys, thanks for being here. So this is press policies, this was your first read then?
Yep.
Okay.
Send it over to you and really, nothing controversial in it. When I went through it, it's just a lot of cleanup, from the last round of legislative sessions. Changes to, minor changes to curriculum. Like I said, nothing really, significant, but when you get a chance, to read through it, if you have any questions, let me know.
For everybody that's new, does everyone understand what press is? Do we know, do you want a quick
Yeah.
summary?
Sure. So, you belong to the School Board Association. That's the group that just put on the conference, that we all went to. And so, one of the services that they provide for an additional fee is called, the press policy. And so what they do is, any, court dates, any court decisions or laws that get brought and change the landscape of how schools need to function,
they will amend our policies to reflect that. And so then, so we, or hiring our own special attorney, for a fee, they go through, they update all of the policies, put them in place, put them back in front of us, so all we have to do is, approve what their team of lawyers is doing. And they do this exact same thing for hundreds and hundreds of Illinois school districts around the state, right? So they're only doing it once, disseminating that out to everybody, and then, if you go online, actually, our board policy is online, it's online through them, and so then, once we submit to the School Board Association that we have approved, the press policy 110, then they will automatically update all our policies online.
So even really, really big districts, like, nobody writes 100%, like, from scratch. I mean, there's some that have additions or maybe have some language changes to them, but then like Brad said, you then have to have your legal counsel be able to back that up as something that's defendable should you, get challenged on anything in there. So we as a district, as far as I know, have never veered from press. But it's like gold standard, I guess,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I mean, it's
Well
a lot of lawyers, it's all the case, all the footnotes, reference which cases, decisions were there and why that's, what it is. These are policies, that doesn't mean that there's not administrative procedures that are then taken and interpreted in the way that we actually would have the policy carried out. But the actual policy itself, the legal terminology comes from press. So we'll have this as first read, and then we will bring it back at the next meeting for adoption of those changes.
Correct.
Just so everybody understands the process of what that means. Okie dokie. So we do need to discuss. I don't know what happened in my board last night. Hang on. My computer just took me back to November 21st. Wouldn't that be nice? A whole nother month to plan for Christmas. Jumping back in. Okay. So we need prior to action item 7E, now 8B, we do need to call for a closed session for discussion of that individual employment contract.
Let me read my blurb.
Sure, read it quick.
Okay.
Read it in your Pledge of Allegiance
Okay.
voice.
Yes. I'll make a motion to move into executive session for the discussion of information related to appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of public body or legal counsel for collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. And am I reading that there? Because that doesn't apply to what we're talking about.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
There you go.
I second.
And roll call.
Got the little thing.
Camitas,
Yes.
Reinders,